Hi, I'm Matt Wacher, Chief Investment Officer at Morningstar Investment Management. Welcome to the Morningstar Market Minute, which is a video series where we explore markets, the economy, and other notable trends every Friday lunchtime. So far this week, things have been a little bit quiet on the markets, with even the latest tariff noise out of the US going largely ignored. But there are a few key things that we have noted. And let's start with tariffs. Over the last week, President Trump again notified countries of the tariff rates that he's going to charge them, and Australia did escape without a significant impact, but tariffs are now being used as a geopolitical tool against the likes of India and Brazil in particular, who both buy significant amounts of Russian oil. The markets have really seemed to shrug this off. There's this latest bout of tariff noise, and they've really been focused on other things. One of those things is the economic growth situation, particularly in the US. And late last week, we saw some weaker US employment numbers and some big revisions of those employment numbers to some of the previous months. And this caught markets a little bit by surprise. It led to pretty much a short-term sell-off in the US markets, but what is really important is that the Federal Reserve, which has been steadfast in not wanting to raise rates in the face of potential tariff-led inflation, now they may be forced to pivot to prop up economic growth and support the weakening employment picture. In other areas of focus, earnings both here in Australia and in the US are a key indicator for the direction of markets and how they're going to travel. In the US, big tech names such as Microsoft and Meta, they've delivered blowout earnings, fantastic earnings, with the likes of Amazon missing their earnings marks, but they had some pretty lofty expectations set by the market. In Australia, it's not dissimilar to the US. There's some lofty expectations in there. And the big question around earnings is whether the outcomes can actually meet those expectations, which have already been priced into the markets. At current levels, there's really very little room for error, especially with all those macro risks that are looming out there. Overall, it's been a reasonably quiet week for markets. We continue to be a bit cautious on the US, particularly large caps and Australian equities, which again, getting a little bit expensive. New all-time highs have been reached, and we prefer some of the emerging markets. The UK is not bad, and also defensive sectors like healthcare. Finally, no doubt mortgage holders in Australia will be waiting for the next RBA meeting, which happens next week, and we'll see whether there's those reasonable inflation numbers that have come out prompt another rate cut after July's shock pause. That's it from me, and we'll see you again for another update next Friday.
Any advice in this video is general advice prepared by Morningstar without reference to your objectives, financial situation, or needs. You should consider the advice in light of these matters and any relevant product disclosure statement before making any decision to invest.